Guys, the last few months have been hard for us PC enthusiasts, and finding a mainstream graphics card selling for its actual MSRP has been pretty much impossible. As some of you know, this has been due to the recent boom in cryptocurrency mining, specifically of Ethereum. GTX 1060s, 1070s, and AMD's Radeon 400 and 500 series are the most cost-effective option when it comes to mining Ethereum, and are selling for $100 to $200 over their MSRP, which is absolutely devastating for PC enthusiasts wanting to build a decent 1080p gaming rig. One graphics card that has managed to dodge the recent supply shortage though is the GTX 1050Ti, which is still selling for its MSRP of $140 US. Now, when it released last year, it was mostly overshadowed by its similarly priced but much better performing AMD nemesis, the RX 470. No one in their right mind would choose the 1050 Ti over the RX 470 back then, but times have changed, and the 1050 Ti may just be the best option for those looking to build a new budget gaming PC capable of 1080p at 60 FPS. With 768 CUDA cores, a boost clock of 1392 MHz out of the box, and 4GB of GDDR5 memory, we are getting a nice upgrade over the vanilla GTX 1050, which is priced just $30 less. The 4GB of VRAM is definitely an interesting talking point as well, seeing as most AAA games being released lately are using at least 2 to 3GB, so we'll see if we're limited in today's games. For those playing esports titles however, this won't be an issue, as you're most likely going to be turning those texture settings down for those crispy FPS gains. But if gaming at ultra settings is more your thing, this is one reason to choose the 1050 Ti over the stock 1050, which only packs a mere 2GB of VRAM. I've got the MSI Gaming X card here, which I'm really impressed with, and this card barely touched 60 degrees even once overclocked. I'll just say that the twin Frozen cooler from MSI is no joke. Do note that some 1050 Ti's don't require any power connectors and are powered directly from the PCIe slot on your motherboard, giving it up to 75 watts. This model, however, does require a 6-pin power cable, so if you do plan on overclocking, this may be one of the models that you want to look at. Now, I know I said the boost clock for the 1050 Ti is 1392 MHz, but this particular Gaming X model from MSI was able to sit quite comfortably at 1784 MHz, thanks to Nvidia's GPU Boost 3.0. I also did manage to stretch that all the way up to 1934 MHz with a bit of overclocking. Pretty crazy that this little budget gaming card can almost hit 2 GHz without even a whisper from the fans, which were barely spinning the entire time I was testing. I'm not promising that you'll get this sort of thermal performance though from all 1050 Ti variants, just saying that this one was quite impressive. On the back, we're getting a DisplayPort 1.4, HDMI 2.0, and dual-link DVI. And seeing as this card is targeted towards the budget market who aren't gaming on multiple monitors, I think this is just fine. Use DisplayPort for your gaming throughput, and if you happen to have extra monitors for web browsing or streaming, HDMI and dual-link DVI will be more than enough for those. So let's take the 1050 Ti through a few titles and see how it does in 1080p gaming. The test system also features a 7700K on a Z170 motherboard and 16GB of 2666 MHz RAM. If you want to see gaming benchmarks of the 1050 Ti paired with the Pentium G4560, be sure to hit that subscribe button, as that'll be coming out later in the week. Now, I didn't feel it was completely appropriate to test this particular card at ultra settings for all games, as it did struggle a little bit here and there, so we do have a little bit of a mix in this testing. Starting off with Overwatch however, and here I was able to play at ultra settings no problem. At stock, the 1050 Ti is averaging 108 FPS, with bottom 1% and 0.1% of frames at 87 and 70 respectively. Once overclocked, we see a gain of about 8%, with average FPS now at 117. I know Overwatch isn't a particularly hard game to run, but it is a very popular one, and here the 1050 Ti is absolutely crushing 1080p. Moving on to Battlefield 1 multiplayer, and here we're looking at high settings on a 64-man conquest on the map Amiens. Here the 1050 Ti is able to push above 60 FPS on average, and we see that extend beyond 70 FPS once overclocked. Bottom 1% and 0.1% results were a little low, but turning a few settings down to medium should improve those quite easily. Another game that the 1050 Ti handed ultra settings at was Doom, running the Vulkan API, with 64 FPS on average at stock and an even 70 with an overclock. The frame rate was smooth here as well, with bottom 1% and 0.1% results not far behind. Not much else to say, but the 1050 Ti was easily capable at 1080p at this title. In GTA 5, I tested all settings at high, with anti-aliasing settings down one notch, and this delivered a very playable and enjoyable gaming experience. At 1080p, the game looked sharp, and I didn't feel any stuttering or frame rate drops at all. Using the built-in benchmark, we're seeing that the 1050 Ti is handling this game with ease, and as usual, we see a nice boost once overclocked. Simply put, if you want to play this game at 1080p, consistently above 60 FPS at high settings, the 1050 Ti is your best bet. Far Cry Primal is a fairly demanding title even at 1080p, where the 1050 Ti does fall a little short of that 60 FPS mark at high settings. At stock, we're seeing an average FPS of 54 and a minimum result of 50. The overclock is giving us that nice boost once again, extending that to 58 and 54 respectively. In PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, a game I know a lot of you are playing quite a bit lately, the 1050 Ti is capable of a stable 60 at medium settings if you're prepared to dial in an overclock. Here the experience was fairly solid, and since I expect most of you to be playing this on lower quality presets such as low or very low, the 1050 Ti is definitely capable here. Witcher 3 did prove to be a little bit demanding though, as I did have to lower the settings down to medium to see that 60 FPS on average. Still though, for a $140 graphics card, you can't really complain. The game still looked solid at 1080p, and you're definitely getting your money's worth here. Finally, in Prey, we were able to play at ultra settings above 60 FPS, which is really impressive seeing as the game was just released this year. The experience here was smooth enough and without any hiccups, and I'd be more than happy to use the 1050 Ti if I was playing this game at 1080p. Overall, I think the GTX1050 Ti from Nvidia is the best budget gaming graphics card you can buy right now. With its little brother, the GTX1050, being priced at around $110 at the moment, I'd highly recommend investing the extra $30 and stepping it up to the Ti. A few months ago, the RX 470 was the clear pick, but pricing has changed everything, and right now, the 1050 Ti reigns supreme for price to performance. In late 2017, I think the GTX 1050 Ti is definitely a worthy graphics card. I'd be very happy to put this in a budget build myself, but of course, I want to hear what you guys think in the comment section below. As always guys, a huge thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button if you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you all in the next one.